Hello and welcome back to another episode of This Round is on Me. My guest today is the founder and curator of The Vault, which sources some of the best produced spirits from boutique independent distilleries from around the world and brings them to India. The Keepers of the Quake, an international society established by the Scotch whisky industry, which celebrates the commitment of those who produce and promote the world's finest distilled spirit, inducted him as a life member in 2016, and similarly, the Gin Guild inducted him in 2018. If you're someone who loves the world of fine spirits, you need to have Keshav Prakash on your speed dial. Join us after a quick break.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcasts network. On Explain Like I'm 10, Meghna talks to Twitter celeb ROFL Gandhi and stand-up comedian Puneet Panya on what is trolling. On Vartalab, Akash and Raveen are joined by actor Shruti Seth. They talk about the weirdest events they've hosted and their life on social media. On the Musafir Stories, vlogger and YouTuber Antarik Anvesan takes us to India's Little Lhasa, McLeodganj. And on Pop Rap, Snehil, Nikhil and Karan discuss the recently concluded fantasy series House of the Dragon. Don't forget to subscribe to IVM Pop for the latest episodes. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcasts.com. We have some exciting stuff for you. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you like our shows, spread the word, tell your friends, and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find all our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League Program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome to the show, Keshav. It's
Absolutely.
great to have you here, finally. So, how are you?
Good, great. My first podcast, so...
Yay, you're a podcast virgin. I'm about to take your podcast virginity.
Please do.
Look, you actually started out your career as an ad filmmaker. And based on my introduction, you don't do that anymore, obviously. So how and why was the transition into the world of fine spirits and wine and all things alcohol?
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride so far. But I guess if I have to rewind and kind of introspect what happened, I guess I've remained a storyteller, right? Films, the craft and everything is about production, logistics, problem solving, and I'm doing exactly the same thing now. No different, right? Except the medium happens to be, fine spirits. But yeah, I think what draws me into it is the curiosity. It's the curiosity to learn more, and I find, I've always been a fan of films. And that is to me a culture. I don't read much, but I watch. I love, experiencing and watching. So even here, it is, spirits go back a long, long way, deep into cultures of, various different lands across the world. And it interests me.
But was it something that you personally, I know, for example, with us, with Jay and me in the restaurant business, it's a little bit of a similar tangential move from, whatever we were doing before to, which was not hospitality, into the business of restaurants. And it really came from a deep love of food ourselves and, wanting to create a space that we loved going to. And of course, that sounds a little frivolous and crazy, but that is honestly the genesis of what led to the table and everything we've done since. So, what was it that, you could have picked any and so many things. What was it that really triggered getting into this business?
I think interestingly, I come from a family from Bangalore where all my dad and his brothers, all of them ran bars and restaurants. Okay. So it's in my DNA. And then I went off into photography, fine stuff, going to US, studying and all that. Discovered single malt light bulb moment was in film school. Like the first initiation into
having a bad day, need to drink.
No, it was actually a gift, and I opened it and then had something. It was so incredible. I was like, wow, I didn't know such a thing exists. single malts at those time was rare in India. It was a luxury. So come back here and, career and all that. Then my work also took me to places and travel beyond India. And that's where you discovered cocktails and bars and all of those. And you come back to India and it was rather boring. It was like, oh my God. And then it's in my nature that if I get into something, you get into it full and deep. And you started digging, we had internet back then. It just started. So we started digging. There were these whiskey awards. And then none of those whiskeys were in India, not even remotely. So the question was asked, why not? And all of that. And then said, anyway, long story short, that's how Vault was started. The company co-founded with Anjan. But essentially it was curiosity.
Wow. But, to really sift through the world of whiskeys and bring a selection to India, which is what you've done through the Vault, you would have needed to sort of, how did you create a palette to be able to distinguish and really discern from the range and select and bring and continue to do that today?
That was the best part of starting the Vault. It was
travel. The perfect excuse to drink.
It was absolutely wound up kind of filmmaking, had enough of it for a decade and over a decade. Then went in and said, let me actually pack my bags and travel. So for a year and a half before the Vault started, I traveled. Traveled to countries that made interesting spirits. It was Guyana, Haiti, Martinique.
I was just about to say, where is that beyond Scotland when it comes to whiskey? So, that's interesting.
It was beyond. It was chasing mezcal makers, small farm owners in Oaxaca, going to lands. Haiti was quite scary because it was post their disaster that they had. So we had security guards leaving the hotel, reaching the rum distillery and back, right? And Guyana, interesting. You see a lot of Indian-looking people there, Indian names, but slightly different culture. Then understanding rum. So the palate itself was acquired and kind of earned over travel, sitting, understanding people, how the locals appreciate it, what does it mean, right? And Cuba, for example, where rum is a way of daily life. So what does it mean to the common person on the street? So it's coming back with palette and stories. And on a more academic level, went to Heriot-Watt University for a summer program to learn distilling, and then hung out with distillers, went to the Scotch Whisky Research Institute, find out how they have machines to kind of break down whiskey and aroma and sensory, and like, oh my God, so much to learn. Also, in Mumbai, there was formative years where we started a little underground club, a whiskey club of my own. Went on till COVID, actually. And that's where we did a lot of our learning. Is you opened up bottles blind, tasted blind. So we've done tastings for about 250 whiskeys, all blind.
Wow.
And that's where you pick up and learn. So it was learned layer by layer.
Absolutely. So there was a huge, it seems, period of education before you actually sort of got into the business aspect of it. But let's talk about that business aspect. And, obviously I see it from the other side as a recipient of everything that you bring into the country. But what are some of the challenges in bringing, luxury spirits to an Indian audience, both from a business perspective as well as, just commercially in terms of, I guess, educating the audience about them?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we first got our first lot of 6 whiskeys here, there were names that people hadn't heard of, right? Retailers were like, what on earth is this? And prices were so expensive because these are craft, they're small imports, and restaurant owners.
I was going to say, not just retailers, but restaurant owners.
Restaurant owners are like blinking at the price point and everything. But I think, the challenges we face, of course, is there is always logistics, there's regulatory. You fight through the system. FSSA was in its formative years. Even they didn't know what they were doing, but they just had a rule book to follow, right? Everyone was on a learning curve. And we all survived one day after the other. But the biggest, I think, challenge which I enjoy solving, and I solve it even today on a daily basis, is how do we get the story across to the consumer? Because I think fine spirits is still in its nascent stage in India. We're just about getting interesting things in the last few years, right? So not only the F&B industry, but also the consumers need exposure. We need access to them. We need to meet them more often. And essentially, I think that is the larger challenge, because I'm disconnected from the actual end consumer, because there's no e-commerce. There's no way for me to connect today to the consumer.
I mean, that we'll sort of talk a little bit, because I know, I mean, we've worked together and I know some of the initiatives you take, but food and spirits are very sort of culture centric, and each dish or drink is an experience of culture. And I'm sure you picked up a lot of that during these travels. And there's a lot of storytelling, like you said, behind every sort of drink or bottle that you're bringing in. So how are you able to actually communicate this? And I don't mean just in terms of the physical interaction with your end consumer, but how are you able to put that across, to the world at large?
Yeah, I mean, so starting from our website, that is vaultfinespirits.com, you'll see it's a coffee table book, right? So communication and we do most of that via experiences, correct? That is really the approach that we take, is to educate people via experiences. Honestly, the industry in Mumbai has really helped us, the F&B industry. They put us on menu cards. That was the start. So it was menu card by menu card that the first exposure happened to our target audience, so as to speak. And then came in, experiences like what the deconstructed series we did at the common table. Amazing. We deconstructed rum, we deconstructed whiskey.
I still remember you brought an agave plant for the session you did on mezcal, and everyone was just blown away. They were like, you literally, went into, the origin of the.
Had to.
Yeah.
If and I think we've also do in-depth research into what we deliver as an experience, right? And that is actually appreciated by people. So we had to earn kind of a place as the domain experts of craft spirits, both within the industry and also amongst the consumers, who kind of maybe recall us as the Vault collection. So these are all things that we picked up from our marketing backgrounds, is to say, okay, establish the Vault collection. It's a portfolio of brands. So what we're really selling here is an experience called the Vault, right? So that has been it. Organic, yes. It's always been a pull model. We never push anything. And I think it's taken time, but we're very happy in the space where we are right now.
Sure. You keep saying craft spirits. Can you break that down for us a little bit? Like, is that just a fancy word? Like, you get artisanal and, all of these, which tends to now come up a lot with various products, not just in the world of spirits. What exactly is craft versus what's not?
Yeah, I think it's a much abused word, must say. But to me, there is an industrial scale of production of something, and then there is a small scale where it's probably, to me, it's when it's personality driven. There's a person actually behind the product, founder distiller or a brand with a master distiller putting their name behind it, kind of individualizing that whole production of it. To me, kind of that is craft. So craft can be of large scale too. It's not that only if you make 5,000 cases a year, it's called craft. No. To me, it is that authentic, storyline that carries through to the final product. So that to me is to me, at least personally, is craft. Uncompromised is craft.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Coming back to this aspect of education and sort of building awareness amongst consumers, right? And like you said, getting onto a restaurant menu card is the first step. but as a restaurateur, I think while for one of the challenges I face is that while we have all these amazing wine, spirits, etc. on the menu, that there's still sort of a missing link in terms of communicating about them to the consumer, right? So you'll see like now I don't know how many gins and how many sort of rums and whiskeys, etc. But like then what? How does someone pick between something they have tried and not tried? That sort of so. Where do you feel, how have you been able to bridge that gap between being available and being sort of known about? Is it through maybe education with the restaurant teams or the front of house teams? Is it, do you see sort of more happening with, the sort of industry wanting to build their knowledge so that they can communicate effectively about your portfolio, for example? Like, how do you see bridging that gap?
Yeah, I think front of line are our partners who's restaurant owners and retail store owners, correct? And kind of educating them, but they're also ever changing. They're switching jobs and they're moving places. So yes, definitely social media helps because it's directly communicating with the end consumer. So we take a lot of effort in maintaining our social media handles and our monthly newsletters. We put in a lot of effort to send that one newsletter, but we take a lot of time in doing that. But when it comes to consumers discovering the product, I know that we kind of sometimes might get just that one chance to impress because it is expensive on the menu cards. So the curation of the whole portfolio is where it is, it's so important. Is you put 1 week product in and that's the chance, that's the weakest link. And if a consumer happens to pick that, then that is the negative side. The flip side of the Vault collection is the entire portfolio is so curated, and I personally sit down and curate it. I take a lot of time, putting a brand into our portfolio. That is what it really helps. And then there's a trust factor. People know that yes, it is expensive, comparatively expensive, but it is really, really good.
Credibility.
Yes. So that is earned over the years, both with owners of restaurants and also with consumers, that, hey, pick something from the Vault collection. And I think that's paid off.
Let's come to the brands part of it. I mean, you've obviously now been around, 8 years? Is that right? So what's the sort of response been from brands, and how do they view the Indian market? And, have you seen sort of challenges in that respect, or is everyone kind of keen to get a foot in the door?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of done a great service, in creating a route to market for these small independently owned brands to come into India, which I think everyone kind of, it's even common knowledge, is one of the most difficult countries in the world to do business, especially in alcobev, correct? Highly regulated, state-wise policies, ever-changing goalposts on rules and laws. So brands, I think, are very thankful that we've sat down and we created a route to market. Many of these brand owners don't even have the bandwidth to fly to India once to do a market research or a study. So that is there. Having done that, the kind of pedigreeness of the brand we represent itself is a calling card that kind of opens us many doors. We, to a level where people have now started calling us, we don't reach out to people anymore. Correct? And they see that this kind of trusted, again, there's a lot of trust and credibility built internationally, that they feel that, oh, A, B, and C brands, these are very well-known brands, are in their portfolio. We would love them to be our custodians.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to be, and kudos to both you and Anjan.
Thank you.
Going back to this consumer experience, in 2019, you all created the first craft spirits festival, the Vault Biennale. And tell us, what was the inspiration behind you creating the festival, and how is it different from, other spirit festivals around the country?
The birth of the festival itself was, that goes back to what the ethos of the Vault is all about. It is about building culture and appreciation for fine spirits. And we kind of knew that we want to build a community that comes together to celebrate fine spirits. And what other way but to bring, say, 500,000 people in a common space, put the best that is out there and say, hey, come in, talk to each other, meet brand owners, meet creators, crafters, and all of that, right? And I personally learned almost a lot of what I kind of know today and bring to the vault by visiting trade shows across the world, from Japan to US. Correct. I've traveled a lot in the formative years, and that's where things are birthed. Future what's happening. So I said, why not India have such a festival? And at that time in 2019, when we did it, we called it the Vault Biennale because we thought, okay, once in 2 years should be sufficient. But post-COVID, everything has changed.
Absolutely. But, you talk a little bit, you talk actually a lot about the culture of appreciation. How, through the festival, what did you actually do to sort of provide this space, this environment for the culture of appreciation?
Basically, what we did is we gathered fellow storytellers. I remember I always go back to storytelling, and we knew that brands of course want to meet consumers because of that's the kind of one place where you can really meet authentic consumers directly. But what's interesting to know is consumers also equally want to meet brands. They want to know why they're drinking, for example, that Campari, what goes behind it, what's the story, why is it so iconic as an ingredient to a Negroni, right?
Mm-hmm.
So consumers want to know very often, where do they go and meet the maker of such a fine, unique ingredient? So that is what we did. So a lot of people flew in to the festival, and we also collaborated with chefs, with partners, with other creative people in the field to say, hey, where is the cusp of fine spirits and, let's say, loosely speaking, fine life, but it is food, a way of life, entertaining, chocolate makers, coffee people, all of that. I think we put together this, and then we just let it go, and it was beautiful and
I
brilliant.
remember it. I remember it was fun, and I think that's the important thing, right? It's not meant to be sort of for spirit nerds alone. It's for anyone who appreciates the good things in life and wants to kind of almost cross-pollinate, right? In a way, it's not just about, I have to be a geek on whiskey or gin to attend this. It's something that I think just anyone who understands what goes behind creating something beautiful would be interested. So, of course, the Biennale came to a bit of a rude halt with COVID because, as did many things, but now you are, we're very excited to share that you are announcing the Vault Home Bar Festival, which is due to happen in February 2023. And that's a bit of a switch from the Biennale. So tell us about that.
Yep, very excited to announce what I think is the world's first home bar festival.
Wow.
Right, I did all my research. I couldn't find another one. The chances of finding is weak because I think in India, there's a lot of learning from COVID, which I'll come to in a bit. In India, we are culturally different from kind of rest of the world. We entertain so much at home, right? You meet a person just and you're inviting them home. And the very nature of our homes and the going out, there is a lot of social hierarchy and all of that. We are comfortable at home. And during COVID, we saw a big shift. Of course, bars and restaurants were shut for a year and a half, I think. So people had to, they had no choice. But we also saw a shift in everyone upgraded their home entertaining, which starts at the bar today, right? It's no longer a taboo. And I think all these people having small micro families today, I think start with a home bar. The entertainment starts at the home bar. So the home bar is, as I say, the new fancy car, right? You don't no more have porches to say, hey, look, my car, and then come inside the house. You come into the house, it's like, what do you want to drink? Then starts the story, correct? And we also see more and more people very interested. They're treating drinks akin to food. How you plan your food out, your menu, even if it's the 2 dishes you're putting out for your guests, you plan. I think, what will I serve? What can I do? There's so much of this interest going. And I see more and more youngsters loving cocktail making, mixology, and the whole surge of indie craft brands. They are trying to research and say, what do I put out? So it's an interesting space to address. I think as always, I think we are taking a leap. We are going ahead of the curve. And business-wise, if I look at it, I think India is poised to be one of the world's top at-home consumption countries, globally. Within the next few years, we would be at the very, very top for at-home consumption. So it makes business sense, but it also, I think, kind of what you call underlines the fact that we love our homes.
Absolutely. I mean, I always tell my team that why should people keep coming back to our restaurant? We're not the only restaurant in the city serving burgers or pasta or whatever. And of course, level of food, quality of food is important, but it's really about making people feel at home away from home. So I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head that people are most comfortable at home, and that's what we as restaurateurs are trying to sort of replicate in the restaurant. But it is true that we are I think sort of one of the larger countries where we have the infrastructure to entertain so much at home that I think you've kind of spotted a trend, which is obviously hopefully not a trend and here to stay. So
it is to me very, very exciting. It is this whole thing of people. And Gauri, I think people also, I think the home bar is a reflection of your personality. That is what, it makes one home bar unique from another home bar. And that's so interesting. And just zoom out, go into the sky and say, how many home bars in the country would need a little bit of hand holding and, what to buy and, where to buy. Just solve that problem for people. So in a way, the festival is, again, a community building exercise, right? For people who want to celebrate the home bars.
And how is the festival that's coming up in February going to be different from what you've done, given this sort of new bent of of the festival?
As the format, the festival kind of remains the same. There's going to be, the experiences are built around taste, discovery of craft, listening to masters, gurus, collaborators, and cross-category also on, food pairing and things like that. And Indulge, which is all about mixology and cocktails.
I remember last time you had amazing bars from all over the world coming. You had Limontor from Mexico City, and you had the bar from
Greece.
Greece,
we had the Clumsies. We had
and then Tokyo,
the amazing Japanese guy Kayama-san from right. Yes, we're working on it.
Okay.
We're working on getting an interesting...
Not spilling any beans right now.
No, the hunt is on to get interesting people. But everything is kind of... in a way, the challenge, the difference between last time and this time is we want to kind of anchor it around home bars.
Yeah.
Right? It is, and for the industry and for the trade too, it's about exposing to what consumers want. That's what I guess what you want to know ahead of time.
Yeah.
What is the curve ahead of the curve? How do you plan your menu for next year, for example?
Absolutely. But, speaking of home bars, I think, and you touched on it, the indie brands, crazy sort of traction in that space over the last couple of years. It's sort of, I guess, is it fair to say your biggest sort of competition in a way to you importing spirits, or do you not see it that way and you sort of the two can coexist? What's your take on this explosion that we're seeing on the homegrown space?
No, not at all a competition, because I think we exist in two different spaces. But I'm very happy, and I'm very supportive of every single brand that's out there, that's coming out. because what it's doing is it's creating a consciousness. It's lifting the overall floor up a little bit. Correct. And because each one out there is trying to tell a brand story, they're trying to either talk about the craft or something very specific and unique.
So it almost reinforces what you've been trying to do with just a different portfolio. Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's exactly the same. It's in fact doing me a huge favor by kind of educating the audience about categories of spirits, about nuances of spirits, right? Gin, for example, I think there are like 30, 40 gins out there today, and there's one every week. But I'm like, come on, you know, it's like what is going to happen is they're preparing. Really, they're doing a great service for me because they're preparing my future clients.
You know, in fact, someone asked me. I get asked this a lot actually about, you know, what is it that with so many brands out there, you know, how does someone really you know, navigate this space in a way? Okay, you talk about gin. I'll be honest, if I did a blind tasting of 5 gins, other than a few which clearly have very distinctive flavors, I probably wouldn't know the difference, you know, whether it's imported or homegrown. Honestly, for the average consumer, how do they navigate the world when it comes to buying? You know, is it price? Is it about who shouts the loudest with the biggest marketing budget? I mean, what is it really like when you go and you've talked about 30, 40? I'm sure there are more coming, you know, probably double that is what I've heard. What's going on?
I know there is, you know, but look at what's happening, right? This space is birthing so many entrepreneurs, including women entrepreneurs, who are especially trying to fight this big bad world of alcobev regulations, right? Many of them are just 1-2 people armies, right? All of this, I think, yes, there's a lot of gins out there. It's tough, but I think the audience is also highly intelligent. They know to pick. They know to pick, at least at an emotional level. Fine, they might give in once to the one that shouts out loud, right? But to me, the success of a brand is when there's a repeat buy.
Absolutely.
That's when they've bought into your story and they've endorsed you and they've gone from being a consumer to a patron.
Right.
That shift can happen very quickly, provided you have certain pedigreeness in the product itself, right? Everything starts with the product. That is a given. That has to be a given. And then between that, then they'll choose a story over the other. That's when they will choose the personality behind the brand or the brand story. It doesn't always have to be a person. It could be the brand story. It could be the brand's sustainability effort or just the story of what the product is all about. So I think today's audience, the more choice they have, it makes it tougher for the number of gins that are coming out one a week to say, hey, get it right. You don't take it for granted.
No, I mean, that's what you say, right? That competition always makes you stronger
better.
In a way, where it makes you better rather. And it's the same thing I would say for restaurants. I can totally draw parallels where, of course, now post-COVID, where the industry is sort of going through a major revival and new restaurants opening every week. But, you know, you might bring someone in the first time and the real test is if they'll come in the second time, right? And actually spend their money with you. But I think what's interesting, yes, you know, keeping aside my sort of restaurateur role, but just as a consumer and watching what's going on in the space, is that this whole obsession that we had with buying duty-free and imported and foreign for a long time, and not just in the world of spirits, but whether it's chocolate or anything like cheeses, you know, there's so many. There is a really good quality product also, you know, being made in our backyard, and it's just you know made us open to exploring what's happening, you know, on our own home turf, and not just having this thing that imported must be better than Indian. And I think for me that's a wonderful step in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's true across categories.
Yeah,
correct. Indian fashion or Indian, you know, craft of any kind. And I think we can safely say that, yes, we are breaking the myth of imported is better. And it's nice to see some of the Indian brands, including whiskey brands, priced much higher than the imported counterparts.
Yeah.
right?
And they're making their foray internationally, which is great. Like you're putting India on the world map, of fine spirits as well. And I'm sure there's a huge learning curve that will happen over the years to come for these, distillers and brands, etc. But it's amazing that it's happening. I mean, it makes me really proud. And the other point that you raised, which is about women being at the forefront of this industry, even if it's still in a small part, but it's happening, it's growing. I think that's fantastic because it just sheds all these taboos about women and alcohol, and it's a great inspiration for others who want to get into the industry. Whether you're whether you're a mixologist or working behind the bar, or you're a distiller, or you're a restaurateur, whatever it is. It's just that this is a cool space to be in, even if you're a woman.
Absolutely, I think. Like I said, it's eventually going to be personality driven, right? And that is where I think authentic stories will find their spot in their success spot in this whole game.
I think authenticity is the word du jour. What are some of the spirit trends that people, I hate that word, I have to say, but I'm still going to ask it, that people should be looking forward to? What does your crystal ball tell you?
Oh my God. I think I think globally the trends are no different. It's just the timeline changes. Mm-hmm. Used to take about 5 years for things to catch up to India. Then I've seen it become 3. Now it's almost, we're catching up. Right. If gin, obviously gin will plateau at some point, because there are, my last count, my app, one of the gin apps, I think there were 7,000 gins out there. Maybe it's 10, I don't know. But how
crazy.
So I think the consumer, I think also today's consumer is not going to be loyal to a single category, let alone a brand. They will not even be loyal to a category. They want to explore. They're armchair travelers. They want to explore and they want to have new experience on a weekly basis. Correct? So they're going to try mezcal. They're going to try different drinks made out of gin. In gin, they're exploring now slow gin or fruit gins, pink gins, various gins. And as they learn more and more about, okay, how do they identify a gin of their choice, and they get educated about how to, deconstruct gins, then comes the next one. So agave spirits, I think, is definitely on the pickup. Rum is long been waiting to have a proper moment, to say it is so old, so culturally old as a spirit. So I think this is what it is. But again, when we got the first Armagnac in the country in a previous festival, the lady who makes it came to the Vault Biennale, stood there and made people taste. We never knew we could sell even one bottle, but we have in our 3rd import already.
Wow.
So there are people who are exploring, I think. But if you were to make me pick, it'd probably be agave spirits.
Great. Looking forward to everything that you're going to be bringing across. Let's talk about from my perspective as a restaurant business, the sort of physical business, the physical space part of it. I've been in the business for over 10 years, and I've seen a massive evolution in the food scene, not just from the sort of providers, but also the consumer, in terms of, how the trend of consumption has shifted from it being sort of around celebratory occasions to now becoming pretty much an everyday. People eat out, most days of the week, and it's become a way of life. It's a change in lifestyle, right? What have you seen as far as the bar scene is involved in your sort of 8-9 years of the Vault?
When we first got our first set of products, we were like, it was hard. It was knocking on door-to-door salesmanship, right? Hard. Today, with social media and everything, the consumer is way ahead of the curve. I genuinely believe that the entire industry put together, we are underserving what the consumer needs. Correct? They want far more options, far better. So it's a great time to be. And there are a lot more millennials who are now in the legal drinking age coming into the pool And they are coming empowered with information and knowledge and demanding nothing but the best and with fair value. So in a way, and through this, our retailers and the F&B trade are educating themselves to keep up with the demands. I've seen this dramatic shift happen, since from when we started Vault to now.
That's amazing. What do you think makes a great bar?
Like what makes a great restaurant is probably, either a ownership or a chef or combination of that. And of course, there's a lot more. I'm just simplifying it. Like you said, it needs ultimately the comfort factor, which you can't sit and design. So what makes a great bar is, I think, a great barman to start, right? And then it's the bar program, which I try and tell and communicate to, bar owners and restaurant owners. We know you can define your bar, your restaurant as, I am comfort food, I'm Chinese, I am Indian, or I am actually giving a mix of all three. Can you please write down your bar program?
I've honestly never done it for the table either. I'll be honest.
You need to sit down and tell me, even casually in a conversation, hey, your restaurant is this. You talk about your chef, you talk about this, you talk about the ingredients, and, what do we do with the menu? But if a bar is bringing you 50% of revenue, 40 or 60, doesn't matter, plus minus 10, is that why are you not describing a bar program? Right. The day I think a bar owner can sit down and write even one sentence that this is my bar program, I'm not just pouring drinks, but this is my program, and I'm signing that off, is what will make a great bar.
It's so true, and I'm thinking about this right now for myself.
Your homework.
On our menu, we define, on the food side of it. So ours is a single page menu with the food on one side and the drink cocktails on the other. And we do actually have a line there that describes our food.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that for the bar. And, it's interesting. So, we had the restaurant Misty, and where we really tried to create an elevated bar program there. And one of my learnings is that you always end up being either a restaurant or a great bar. And the two sort of, one always ends up sort of playing accessory to the other in a way. It's, you can't have them both, with equal importance. But nevertheless, you're so right. Like I know what our philosophy is for the bar program, but we've never put it into words. And I think that might just change after this episode. So this is why I do this podcast. This is my personal little
your
university happening.
Yes.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And I think another reason why this may not have happened, for a lot of restaurateurs is that I think traditionally we've seen, things like awards and press and media and a lot of all of that when it comes to restaurants focus on the food and the chefs, right? Not so much on the bar program. So I think, it was a sort of almost a mutual ignorance of the bar happening. But, we are seeing bars have their moment now. You've got the 30 best bars list in India. You've got world's 50 best bars with a lot of relatively more Indian bars making their foray onto the list. And, for those of you who don't know, these are sort of rankings of bars, whether it's in India in the case of the India bars or the world's 50 best or Asia's 50 best, etc. So, but, of course, I think people who've been listening to my show for a while will know my take on these lists. But, I'd love to hear your view on bar awards and ranking bars, and, how do you see that as a importer?
No, yeah, for a person in this field, in spirits, yes, you take it, and while it might not be the gospel, but I think people have worked really hard to be on that list. It also, and especially in India, when everything is at a nascent stage, right? Overall, consumers are exploding, they're discovering. We as a country, just now, we've had an exposure to all these amazing spirits only in the last recent, 5, 6, 7 years. It's important, I think, for our industry to compete with each other to just kind of upgrade the overall level of consumer experience, it is win-win. I wouldn't, like I said, it is not the ultimate if you're not on the list, but by aiming to be on the list, you're aiming to kind of be better, and that competitive spirit, I think we absolutely need today, and because look at it, Gauri, I think working in a restaurant or behind a bar was not a career option, right? It was a job. It was not a career option. But slowly we're seeing like a shift, even in the spirits, thanks to, let's say, Diageo's world class or whatever it might be, right? And I think
it's a respectable sort of
it is
job, yeah.
It is a job where I think people are saying, I am a bar person, I am a mixologist, akin to I am a chef, right? And I think this is what we are seeing. It's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I agree. I mean, I think just the acknowledgement and endorsement is a huge boost that, things are happening in the right direction, and there is a possibility to be at par with the rest in the world, and, you don't have this sort of third world syndrome in a way. So I think that's amazing. And yeah, I mean, I hope it inspires and encourages people to do a lot more. And yes, of course, there's always this gray area of like, who qualifies and why qualifies and why does someone go up or down on the list and things like that. But, that's not the point. I think the main fact is that there is recognition of bars and the importance of bars and what they contribute to the industry as a whole. So I completely agree with you. What is the future of the Indian spirits? And I mean, I'm saying wine, but I know, your focus is on spirits. What does it look like from a policy as well as a consumer perspective? What's the potential for this market here in India?
I think India is a phenomenally large global power and a consumer power across any categories to come, right? Look at the surging middle class and upwards and the aspirational community. They are really our driving power of us. And if you were to just zoom in and see the amount of alcohol talk in the UK India FTA, in the Australia FTA, I'm sure there is a lot more, but even the news doesn't carry anything beyond alcohol, policies and so on. Maybe it's my selective perspective, but I think that is what is the buzz is this talking about. So the reduction of duties in Scotch import is the number one topic in UK India FTA, right? So and EU is following, and so is US, and everyone's topic is liquor and alcohol seems to be, rather than tech and agriculture and other food products and import, which goes to, I think, underline the fact about the vastness of this industry.
The potential.
The potential is huge. Everyone is looking towards India as the next largest consumer, country.
Destination,
market, right? And so this is going to be huge, serious business, and government policies, I hope, will ease out a bit to at least make a level playing field within India. There is no GST. I think alcohol is one of the few categories that doesn't come under GST.
Yeah, but you have VAT.
Yes,
so it's tax free.
It is. So
ask me who has to sign checks.
I know how important it is to the state, how important it is to the federal, to the central things. So it is very, very important, and I think the industry should come together collectively to form, to seek better, what you call business conditions, ease of business. So desperately we need that, and I think, it's happening, but it's slow, but it's happening.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I think I don't want to kind of whitewash this as being all hunky dory. I mean, like, we keep seeing sort of rules around even social media restrictions around showing alcohol. There seems to be like culturally some kind of I don't know what the right word is, but there is a bit of a negative connotation around alcohol. last words. How do we kind of dispel this and, remove this sense of taboo?
Yeah, I think, I need to now flip and look at it from the government's point of view because they have a larger agenda, right? But I think consumer responsibility can be the first step from our side to say, hey, right from bar owners to drinkers to responsible drinking, how strict it's in the US. When we go to the US, you don't drink and drive, for example. You have designated drivers. You have a very, very strong policy, right? I think Drink Aware in the UK does that. It is asking questions. Are you old enough to even visit my website? They take it very seriously. So I think, well, hey, listen, I mean, we could all wish for the government to do everything, but the first initiative, I think, should come from the consumers and the industry first to say, we are a responsible nation, and then go on to say, can you please remove all these restrictive practices also? So it needs to kind of be one step from both directions. Responsibility, I think, is the key.
Fair enough. Well, on that very sobering note, I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be back right after this.
Previously on Varta Lab. After 3 wonderful seasons, Akash and Naveen went their separate ways in search for glory, comedy, and comedy glory. But all they found is long transit time, bureaucracy, and upset stomachs. Now, after 3 years of collecting stories and hustling,
I can't mention. Bullies. There's no need to overact. Bullies.
Akash and Naveen are back at the lab.
Let's do it.
With
Stories, we've got stories. They're a little bit of funny and a little bit of December. You wanna hear them? It's got humans. They're sitting in a box and talking bold at Varta Lab.
So welcome back. I have Keshav with me on, and we've been talking about all things booze, but now we're going to talk about more about food. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. But tell us, what is your go-to comfort food, Keshav?
I mean, I'm a South Indian. I love but probably the biryani.
Oh, okay. Which biryani? Which style of biryani?
The Tamil style.
Oh, I have to try this.
Yeah. It's
I don't know if you know this, but Jay is obsessed with biryani, and I think he's tried like most biryanis across the country, which is why I know that there's even more than one style of biryani.
There's so many.
But I don't know if I've tried the Tamil style.
Well,
so
yeah. I mean, I must say it's not your daily comfort food,
sure.
But that's my kind of go-to as
indulgence.
To say indulgence food. Yes.
Fair. What's your favorite tipple?
Oops. A dry martini.
Oh, mine's a dirty martini, but yeah.
But it needs to be really cold, and I struggle with that.
Oh, really?
To find one. Yeah.
Okay, good tip. I'm going to take that back too. What's a great book you've read? And I know you're a podcast virgin up until today, but do you listen to them or any sort of anything
not
come
honest,
across recently?
Confession, not much of a reader. I haven't read one for a long time. I love, like I said, movies and stories.
Okay, so tell us a great movie you watched recently.
Genres, I think, I like movies that are based on real life and more so recently stories. I mean, these mini-series, I've been watching a lot of them. But I love comedy too. Marvelous Miss Maisel, well-written, Woody Allen-ish style. That I can watch endlessly.
Good. I'm glad that you're not categorizing that as chick TV. So
no, yeah. I'm going after the craft and the writing.
What would you say is the best investment you've made in your journey so far?
Saying yes to Anjan has to be that,
Correct answer.
Correct answer. Go.
I love how you didn't say, "Oh, I did this course or I did that," or very, very. That's definitely a first on this show.
No, it's the best investment into a great partner. and friendship.
Amazing. Who've been your role models or mentors along this Vault journey?
No single person in particular, but I do draw a lot from entrepreneurs and success stories, especially within India, because it has to be, I think, market specific. That's the reality of it. And, I admire people, especially, single entrepreneurs or startups who start something and then go out there and put their best out there. So they are my constant source of inspiration.
Anyone in particular?
Like I said, no one specific, but it's amazing. When I see like a restaurateur, let's say JNU, out there putting it together and then working, chipping away on a daily basis. So it's all this. So I draw from even a pushcart vendor who's doing things diligently, properly, in an uncompromised manner. So I just keep drawing from these and just adding it up to my inspiration stack.
Absolutely. I mean, we all take from everywhere, right? What's your definition of success?
Oops. I think waking up and wanting to go to work.
I agree completely.
I think that to me means you've succeeded or on the way to success, or what you wanted to do is to just wake up and say, I'm glad I woke up early today.
Absolutely.
And I need to get to work.
And honestly, I don't think we can take something like that for granted. I think it's very hard to find something you feel so passionate about and be able to make a business out of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What would your message be to founders in the spirits industry?
Ooh. And there are lots of it, right?
Yeah.
And so many coming up. And I think, like I said earlier in the show, the consumer is going to be brutal because they have the choice to make, right? And if you want to succeed, put your very best out there. There is no room for compromise. But more than anything, be authentic to what you want to do.
Wiser words have not been spoken. Keshav, thank you so much for being on the show. And I wish you all the very best, both with the Vault and, of course, with the festival that's coming up. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
Absolutely.